Hey guys, Dave from Nerd. 4 nerds, by nerds, hang out with these nerds.
Hey, I'm Nerdicus Ryan.
Ted.
And today we're doing a video response to Matt Colville, and we're going to be stealing from 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons for this one.
If you want to jump down in the description below, you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
Yeah, I think they'll all be in the doobly-doo down below.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in addition to that, we also put the link to the video that spawned this video response. Matt Colville did an excellent video on skill challenges from 4th edition and basically just using them in your game.
Like, migrating them into this edition, the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. So if you're not aware, or if you haven't watched Matt's video, well, you should definitely check that out. But the idea is that you need X amount of successes before 3 failures, and each failure should have its own consequence. Sometimes there's unique consequences, or sometimes they're just the same thing happening again as a result. Sometimes if you make the 3rd failure, something like really catastrophic happens.
Like dying?
Like dying, or sometimes the stakes are lower and it's just going to make what you're going to have to do or accomplish that much harder.
Right. So a skill challenge is just that. It involves your skill proficiencies as opposed to combat, but it's another way to use the mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons to do interesting things in the game. It becomes like a mini game in the game.
Yeah.
And
so I was going to say, there's a couple different things that I think skill challenges add to the game, regardless of what edition you're using it. Number one, it's a way to make encounters more interesting if you want to add skill challenges into a combat that's already happening.
Oh, so I mean, something to that effect. Like, I was running a Dark Sun game in 4th edition, which didn't touch a lot of 4th edition, but I love Dark Sun, so I was willing to give that a whirl. And so I linked a skill challenge into harvesting raw materials from the hide of an animal, basically. That you didn't mess up the hide that much when you're going to make armor and weapons out of it, because in Dark Sun, like, every little bit of organic material kind of matters because you're resource deprived.
Right.
So that was a way to... They were fighting the thing, but there was skill challenge components going into it as well while the fight was happening.
And then the other factor is you can use a skill challenge outside of combat. And regardless of what you're actually doing, there are characters that are made in this game that some of them are very skill focused, some of them are very combat focused. And if you have a character that's not very useful in combat, but is very useful skill-wise, it's a way to allow that character to literally come forth and shine.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of the characters has some pretty good utility in combat regardless of the class, but you have your characters that, as far as their suite of skills are concerned, are more knowledge-based, or are more their physicality is what matters. And so when you're designing a skill challenge, like, sometimes depending on the context of what's going on, it's going to be a more physical thing to do, like scaling a mountain or navigating a difficult pass. But sometimes
chase sequences.
Or sometimes, although some knowledge of knowing the area might be helpful then, but other times it might be like a montage, which is Colville framed it very nicely in calling it like a montage scene, because it's definitely what it is. But if it was something involving research, like a research montage, so the wizard is all over that crap in the bard.
Well, the interesting thing about using a skill challenge too is actually what you just said, right? A chase sequence where actual knowledge of the layout of the area could be useful, and it could be actually provided by someone that isn't really physical. So they could actually be assisting the physical characters who are good at acrobatics and athletics and are fast.
Turn left, jump here, turn right.
So it is a way for skill challenge is a way to bring the party together to accomplish a goal, right? And it does kind of function almost like combat in that sense that you have to work together to defeat the problem.
And it is kind of like turn-based, like you could base it off of an initiative or something like that. Or just go around the table, really, as to what people are doing.
Yeah, and I've also seen where, there's ways to accumulate things that aren't actually successes, but they undo failures, or they add another benefit. So when you're...
Maybe they create, like, advantage or a +2 to somebody else's check or something like that.
So when you're creating a skill challenge, you can, like, kind of build those things in. after watching Matt's video, I really wanted to run a skill challenge. I'm like, I don't know what it would be, but it did kind of psych me up to actually want to use
his enthusiasm and his speed of talking and how he describes things and everything, and it's going really fast and it's epic, and like it's I want to
and don't forget not blinking.
Yeah. I want to watch
the guy's not human; he's an alien.
Yeah, I want to watch him on 2x speed and just see what happens. The universe slows down around me.
I agree with you, Dave. My brain is already going on. What I could do next. There's definitely some interesting things there.
Well, he did a really good job, and he used great examples. He threw out like 4 to 6 examples of ways he's used skill challenges in his games, and they were all kind of different. Like he talks about a chase sequence. He talks about slowing down a kaiju type monster. He talks about stopping the portal that's going to bring Orcus through,
or an Orcus proxy, but Orcus light. And then two collapsing building sort of scenarios going on.
No. One's a collapsing building scenario. And the other one is, there's going to be a combat when you get out, but depending on how well you get out, determines how tough that combat was going to be.
So the other thing that was very interesting is when he designed his skill challenges, he's like, these skills, and literally tells the players, these are the skills that will get you successes. But then he allows, if the player comes up with an idea, say, hey, can I use this skill in this manner to allow us to get a completion.
Now, here, my problem with skill challenges is like how standout of a mini game it is. I almost want to figure out like a code word to use. Like maybe it's as a DM, you say, okay, here's the scenario, and then that just means that's code for skill challenge. And this, do you outline what the problem is? Because the idea of like saying, okay, these are the skills you can use, and it's just like
I got it. I know how I'm going to do it in my game.
What's that?
I'm going to be like, all right, Ryan, leave the table. Rest of you guys, skill challenge. These are the skills that work.
And then I come back and like, so what's happening?
Sphere of annihilation. You're all dead. Sorry.
So I don't like that bit of it, like outlining all the parameters. Like if you say this is a chase scene, if you're thinking about chase, it comes to mind what would matter, be important.
I think you're right. There is definitely a way that things can be presented.
Immersion.
Yeah. It does break immersion. So if you find a way to narrate what is going on, so you could say like, all right, the guy you have been seeking is trying to get away. You know that he's going from rooftop to rooftop. So if you use acrobatics or athletics, you're going to be able to get closer to him. What are you guys doing?
At the same time, there does have to be a clear, defined signal to the players that this isn't going to just be based off of your movements and making attack rolls, that there's something else involved.
Yeah.
You're going to have to dig into other resources for your character.
Well, here's how you frame it. So you define... Here's the scenario, and then you define what that is, right? And then you just ask, what do you do? Because, I climb. Well, I try to like shimmy up grates and things like that. Like so, people can start to do whatever they're going to do, and then players can go around and ask, well, would it be valid if I did this? And then this way, it's like what you're thinking and everything like that, but it's not spoon feeding the player the solutions. It's like they arrived at it. You in your head kind of know what's going to work, but you want the players to kind of come up with those solutions themselves. Very new players, I get explaining it to them because they have no idea. But anybody that's playing D&D for a while, like all those capabilities for the characters, those are things they can do. And I'm not a fan. So Matt Colville did a thing. He has a house rule that if a character is not trained in a given skill, he doesn't want them to make a check against that. But for me, it's just like, well, the DCs are the DCs. If they make it, they make it. And if they fail, they fail.
I kind of agree with him, especially for the point that he said. It's like, okay, the character who is exceptionally trained in it and, typically is able to get that 15 or higher on a regular basis, but happen to roll a 1, whereas you who are like, oh yeah, I've never read a book before, but oh yeah, I heard that one thing once, and because I rolled a natural 20.
So, but what about the warrior character who didn't take athletics, but he still has like an 18 strength, right? Like he's still going to be damn good at climbing. He just doesn't have the proficiency bonus.
The addendum to that I was going to put out would be that it would really depend on the skill. Some things you kind of need to be trained in, where other things can actually just be attributes of someone.
Watch the movie Slumdog Millionaire by Danny Boyle, fantastic movie. But like the whole thing, like the whole story is he heard these random snatches of things that happened to be, he went on a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire type of show. So the bits of knowledge he heard through his life were like the perfect things he needed to know, and every single moment was a flashback to how he heard that bit of information to proceed further in the show. And so, like, it's that random thing of, like, that one thing that you might have overheard while you were sparring with someone else. Like, there's two sages that walk by. So, I mean, it's just, but this random bullshit of, like, life is circumstantial sometimes. And
Well, I also, like, I do feel that, number one, his methodology of saying, you're either proficient or you're not, means that you're not going to be like, well, all right, it's worth a try anyway. If you can only get so many fails,
but if you fail, you fail. Like, so great. It's worth a shot. You failed. Well, all right. Bullshit consequences happen now.
Well, then,
Right, but-
here's what I guess what you could do is you could, again, like you said, have consequences for those players trying to make the roll, and being like, okay, it's not everyone gets to make the check, and if you make it, you make it. If not,
no,
you
a fail's
fail.
a fail. Like,
That
is.
So I mean, I guess that's kind of built in there anyway, where someone does kind of have to roll high, but in that case, like, they should always have like kind of a consequence, or perhaps a consequence with like a bad effect. You like kind of stealing from like the Star Wars system, where there's triumphs and despairs and boosts and what's the other one? Setback. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, it gets to the thing of a DC below 10 is seldom, like, worthwhile to ever have in your game anyway, right? Because it's not really that challenging. And the character that's not trained in something where it has, like, a negative, like the fighter with the 8 intelligence making the lore, making the Arcana check, like, well, all right, buddy, if you roll an 11 plus to have a chance.
I actually generally scale my skill checks anyway for characters.
As a GM, you cheat.
I absolutely cheat. If the player's character is skilled in it, I make it easier for them. If the other player who tries the same check is not trained in it, it's harder for them.
Higher.
Yeah, I just make it harder for them. And the same thing, like on a really low DC, or if the player gets a low check, but he's trained in that skill, I might offer him some information anyway. To represent the fact that he has knowledge in that area.
Yeah, you've always done the differential, or however you want to look at it, where it's like, okay, if the DC is 20, you'll offer information at 20, 18, 15, and possibly even lower.
I want to reward the players for the choices they made,
right,
and not the guy that's making random rolls because he might have heard something. F that guy. But skill challenges themselves, it's always something that I've always struggled with, and again, they are newer for us as gamers because they were introduced to us in 4th edition. I don't know.
There is a lot that got tossed out with 4th edition because a lot of old grognards weren't a big fan of it. It wasn't my favorite edition of the game either. So, but there was like little parcels like the streamlining of the proficiency system that definitely came out of 4th as well. And skill challenges is another sort of interesting framework, as long as you can kind of make it flow within the narrative of your game. As long as you can try to not make it break sort of narrative structure of what's going on.
And that was like one of the highlights of Matt's video, was actually the fact that I think he explained the skill challenge way better than it's been explained before.
Than in text it's been ever explained.
Yes.
I agree.
So with that, I think you guys should head over to Matt's video after you leave your comments below, like, share, and subscribe, and check it out.
Right, and you can check us out over at nerdarchy.com.
You can tweet at us at Nerdarchy.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.